You're listening to the Gap Podcast with your host, me, Morgan McGill. As we talk God and politics, my prayer is that you're inspired and encouraged to be a part of filling the God-sized gap in the political sphere. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Gap Podcast. I'm your host, Morgan McGill, and I am very excited about today's guest. He has been in the United States for about 3 years now, and he has hit the ground running when it comes to politics. And I'm really excited for him to tell his story, his testimony, how he got to the U.S., why he came to the U.S., and how he got involved. And he is the president, is that how you would say it?
Group leader
of Turning Point Faith for Awaken Church. And my guest today, Josh Townsend. Welcome.
Hey guys. Thanks so much for having me, Morgan. This is a privilege.
It's great to have you. So I want to start with your journey to the U.S. How did you came here 3 years ago? What was that catalyst? What brought you here? And tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I guess it started a while ago, many years ago. I was studying engineering, and my goal was career. I was seeking career in the U.S. That's the place to come really for engineering, which is what I was passionate about, more so at the time. And anyway, in that process, I applied for the green card lottery as a means of being able to live here and not have to be sponsored by any company or relationship or anything. And I kind of did that as a backup plan, really. I was looking at visas and all sorts of things. And the green card lottery, I applied for it first, was the end of 2017. And there's about a 6-month period before you hear the results back. And logged into the website 6 months later, nothing, sorry, try again. And so I applied again at the end of 2018. And 6 months later, I think it was April, May 2019, log into the government website, and sure enough, it says you've been selected for further processing.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, wow, is this legit? Like, I'm going to have to, I viewed the letter like 3 times, and sure enough, it's the U.S. government inviting me in to participate or pursue this visa. And so that's kind of how it came about, and it was a journey from there.
Yeah.
It took about, I would say, 9 months to go through the immigration process and jump through all the hoops, and very slow back and forth with the government, as you know, a lot of red tape, bureaucracy to get through. Then I finally had my interview with the U.S. consulate in Sydney. What was it? I think it was February 4th, 2020.
Wow, right before COVID.
Right before COVID. Little did we know. And it's funny, I actually walked into the consulate and they said, have you been to China in the last 2 weeks? I said, no, I've never been to China in my life. I said, no worries, it's all good. But yeah, it's COVID kind of stopped me in my tracks. Yeah, it was March. Everybody was shutting down. Australia shut down. The borders were closed. I think it was March 27th, 2020. And so, I ended up with my parents for 3 months, which was great. I'd been living interstate for about 10 years, so it was kind of worked out good to catch up with them. But of course, I'm in the middle of moving overseas. My stuff was on a ship somewhere in the middle of the Pacific. So inevitably that landed here before I did. Mm-hmm. So I had to make arrangements to make sure that was put into storage safely and until I could get out here.
Wow.
And I don't know if you remember at the time, President Trump put a 60-day ban on immigration.
Wow, I do remember that.
And so at that point, I was thinking, am I ever going to get there, And I scrummaged through all the U.S. government websites. The only one that says anything about this ban is the website for the White House. And I'm looking through it. I find the document, looking through it, the presidential proclamation. And there it is. It says I'm already exempt because I already had the visa at that point.
Wow.
So the greatest difficulty...
Favor ain't fair.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, great, I can get over here. At this point, I was getting itchy feet. It was coming into winter in Australia and coming into summer in California. I thought, I really want to be in California.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking at I actually found this app where you could track planes. And I was thinking there's one plane flying between Sydney and LA. I thought, what airline is flying? It's United. I ended up finding out that they're selling tickets. At that time, the BLM riots were happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, I call United and they say, you sure you want to come to America right now? You know what's happening? I say, yeah, I know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, they sold me a ticket.
Wow.
And so then that was all good. I could get in and I could get across, but getting out turned out to be the greatest challenge. So I was meant to leave Australia on the 16th of June. At that point, I had the ticket booked, but I'm waiting for this email to come back from the Australian Federal Police saying that I could go, that I was free to go. And so I had to give basically my whole story. I submitted like 8 different documents. They wanted to know that I'd quit my job, I'd moved out of my apartment, that I'd paid for shipping for my stuff to get out here. So basically they wanted 110% proof that I was not coming back for a while.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm waiting in the airport on the 16th for that. This was my 3rd attempt. They denied me twice, and I'm waiting for the email, and I'm waiting there for 2 hours with all my bags ready to board the plane. And they said, unless we get that email, you can't board the plane today.
Wow.
So at about 10 minutes before they shut the gate, I had to call it, and I postponed the flight till the next day. Thankfully, they were good with that. During COVID, there's a lot of leniency. But I literally remember sitting in a cafe at, Sydney Airport, which at the time, like most airports around the world, was ghost town.
Yeah.
There's not many people there. I'm sitting in this closed cafe and watching my plane take off, and I'm like, dang, well, there's an empty seat on that flight with my name on it, and I'm not on that plane. But then within an hour, I get a call from the AFP saying, are you good to talk to us? And I think, well, you're the most important people right now that I need to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So sure enough, they said, yeah, you've been approved. The email will come through within the hour. So yeah, long story short, I ended up flying out the next day.
Wow, that's crazy. But you got here.
Yeah.
And I don't think very many people have a story similar to that, especially because 2020 was just chaos. But it was. We're glad that you made it. How did you end up from all that picking San Diego of all places, and then how did you end up getting involved in politics from there?
Okay, so picking San Diego, really for me, it came down to church. I've been following our pastors, Pastor Jürgen and Leanne, for a long time. Really, I remember I've seen the whole journey from when they planted this church, and
wow.
So to me, yeah, just watching from a distance, social media, and Pastor Jürgen had a huge impact on my life. They both did, really, and so yeah, for me, it was a clear choice, and actually the fact that he was so outspoken politically. And there weren't many pastors in the world at that time, especially, that were saying anything to do with politics or culture.
Yeah.
They were just,
silent.
No one was going there. No one was talking about it. And he was one of the few that I saw on Twitter that would call it out. And so I thought that's the kind of leadership that I want to be under. So I'm going to place myself in that church and see what happens.
Wow. And then from there, how long did it take for you to get planted and rooted, and then decide I'm going to start getting politically active with this church? And what did that journey look like? How did you start getting politically active?
Yeah, okay. So really, I think my political journey began in, I would say, 2015.
Okay.
I didn't really have any passion or drive toward anything political before that point, I would say. I just remember at the time, ISIS was running around the Middle East, beheading Christians,
mm-hmm.
which, is horrific to see these headlines every day. This many Christians killed in Iraq and Syria. And there was such fear in the world at that time. There was so much terrorism going on.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, gee, as a Christian, who's going to stand up and stop this evil? Who's going to do something about it? Didn't really see anything coming from the US. Obama talked a lot about it, but did nothing.
Yeah.
And then mid 2015, Donald Trump rides down the escalator. And I was just listening to it actually recently. And one of the very first things he says is, there's other candidates out there running rallies, but they don't even know if the air conditioner is working. How are we going to defeat ISIS?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the very first things he says. So I'm like, that's the guy.
So you started paying attention.
I started paying a lot of attention. And I remember watching The Apprentice. Love that show. I was like, okay, the guy from The Apprentice is running for president. Okay, that's
I watched that show too.
Interesting. Yeah. It's
with my mom.
A great show. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And then I started watching the rallies and things he was saying. I'm like, I like what this guy's got to say. Yeah. I like his points. I like his talking points. I identify with this guy. It's all good things. Like, he's talking about making America great again. And I think back, and America was a great country. The Western world and the world at large always looked to America as the beacon of freedom.
Yeah.
And so, but something had happened in probably, the decade before that. Maybe we'll call it during Obama years, but really, obviously, things have been decaying for a long time. And so when this new candidate spoke about bringing that back, I thought everyone's going to want to vote for this guy. Mm-hmm. Like, if he's seeing what I'm seeing, surely everyone's seeing this. But of course, the media just jumped on him. It didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, why is there so much hate towards this guy? Especially
as someone who, and this was an interesting perspective too, because you were outside of the U.S. And watching from afar. So continue, please. This is so interesting.
It was just so inspiring, and to me, I thought, man, we could do with a guy like Trump in Australia, because some of our political leaders were just, to be honest, just pretty weak. Appeasing to the media, bowing to the media. But this was a guy who didn't care what the media said, defied the odds. And, unfortunately, the media in Australia at large is very progressive. We don't really have that strong conservative alternatives. I mean, there are some, but they don't get mainstream airtime. So the narrative amongst Australians was very much, Donald Trump, that guy's a wild cowboy. Like, who'd want to live in a country under him? And so, definitely it was an upstream thing. So I was so surprised that people were against this guy. But now, like, looking back and realizing how much people's thoughts are influenced by the media, you can kind of see why people think and say the things they do. Yeah. It's all to do with the media they consume.
Friends, in over 15 years in the political sphere, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen amazing men and women forego running for office because they have no idea where to start. And on the other side of that, I can't tell you how many times I have seen amazing candidates fumble the ball so hard because they have no idea what they're doing when they decide to run for office. That is why I founded Revival Consulting. The heart of this company is to help God-fearing men and women get elected to local, state, and federal office, because we see a country where the men and women in positions of political power and influence know and love God. If that's you, if you're considering running for office but you have no idea where to start, or you need help, go to itsrevival.com and fill out our consultation form, because we want to help you. We need your voice now more than ever. If you have seen anything that's going on in the world today, you know that you were put on this planet for such a time as this, and we need you. So please don't hesitate. Go to itsrevival.com and fill out our consultation form today. You're a product of your 5 closest friends is like the biggest thing that people say. And that goes for what you're putting into your head with what you're listening to, because I mean, you even think about people, like, they feel like they know their reality stars and on the shows that they watch. They feel like they know them and like they're their friends because of how much time they spend watching that and ingesting it. So it's the same thing with media, and you're the product of what you're consuming. And so when people, especially just into that society today, are constantly consuming that garbage, they're becoming a product of it.
That's right. And they're not dummies. Like, there's a lot of smart, well-educated people that are listening to this stuff
And believing it.
Because it's not just obviously in the media, but it's in the education system as well. You know, the indoctrination starts, unfortunately, it's starting younger and younger as time goes on.
As we're seeing all over now, it's insane what they're doing to our children. But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because we could probably talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
And so, okay, you started watching Trump. You started to get inspired by what he was saying, and then you came to America and you got plugged into a church where it was very pro-Trump. I mean, our pastors are very pro-Trump.
Yeah, I love it.
And so you got planted at Awaken. What did that path look like for you here, getting involved politically here?
Politically, yeah.
I mean, because now you're the leader of Turning Point Faith for our church, our campus, or church. So how did that journey look?
Yeah, so pretty much a month after I landed, I started the internship with our church. I was going to have about a 4-month kind of leeway. I was meant to get here March 20th and have about 4 months to get my life set up. But I got here, I had a month to get a bed, an apartment, a car.
Wow.
All the basic things, you know, for living. So, and then straight into the internship, and I did that for 2 years. The second year of my internship, I actually interned under one of our great pastors, Pastor Samuel Duth, and Pastor Jurgen's charged him with building the political movement or machine within our church. So that was a great privilege, and he taught me a lot. So we actually launched what was named at the time Community Action, which was, the official Awaken branded political arm of our church. And that was great. We brought in some great speakers. You know, we had Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Dennis Prager, Tucker Carlson. We had, the A-list really of speakers come to our church. And so through that process, I was learning a lot, and also building a network, making connections with people in that field. And, one of those connections was Turning Point. Pastor Jurgen already had a friendship with Charlie. And so when Turning Point launched their faith department, Turning Point Faith, they wanted to start this program in 10 churches across the country. So we were one of the first 10. And because I was already in the internship doing political things, I was offered this role. Would you like to be the leader of a Turning Point Faith group in Awaken? And so for me, it made a lot of sense as that would be a next thing coming out of the internship. Going down that path is leading this group.
Wow. And what are some of the things that Turning Point Faith is focused on doing? What are some of the things that you guys do?
Okay, so the three, I guess you would say, main pillars of Turning Point Faith is to engage in discussion, equip through education, and activate or empower. So the first thing is starting with discussion, just getting these conversations going in the church. Fortunately, Awaken, we were already having those discussions, a lot of political thread coming through Pastor Jurgen's preaching and others. But, Charlie's launched this thing called Freedom Night in America, where he goes around and speaks in churches on a weeknight. There's worship, and then basically it's into a speech from him and Q&A at the end. So that gets the ball rolling with discussion. That's the starting point. And then education. One of the initiatives Turning Point's rolling out is biblical citizenship, which is a great program. It's an 8-week program.
Is that the Rick Green,
David Barton?
Yeah,
these guys know so much about America's history and the story of the founding fathers. So really that's a great tool just to educate our people, our congregations, because a lot of this stuff's not getting taught in schools anymore. You know, sadly, Americans, Australians as well, we don't know our history.
Yeah.
And when history is not taught, it's bound to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So these new generations coming through don't know anything of the great things of our past. So the education system indoctrinates them with, you know, all these negative things, white supremacy, slavery, all this stuff, and amplifies it to a point where kids these days think, oh, our countries are terrible. Like, we did terrible things back in the day. And yeah, there are some dark things that happen, but the picture's been painted to...
That we haven't overcome those dark things.
We haven't overcome those things, and they're worse now than they ever were.
Yeah.
But, you know, I always, I love that quote by Ronald Reagan, who said, America will never be destroyed from the outside. It can only be destroyed from within.
Yeah.
And we're witnessing it in real time, watching the foundations of America being eroded away every day in the education system, in the entertainment industry, all over social media. So, yeah, really getting the congregation educated on those biblical truths is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because you won't hear it in school, but George Washington was a man of prayer. He was known for being on his knees for 3 hours, praying before he's about to go to war with the British for independence. And, you know, the Declaration of Independence, all these guys basically were signing their death warrant.
Yeah.
They would have been hung if the English captured them. So, yeah, we've got to get that message out. We've got to get people educated so that they can, when they get into discussions with people, they've confidently got the points that they need to rebuttal anything that's kind of brought against them. Because obviously kids, college students these days going through the education system, they're not told how to think, but they're told what to think.
Yeah.
So all their talking points is just reverberations of what they've heard in the classroom. So it's so important for the church to get educated, to be able to have the discussions.
Wow, I love that. I love that you have hit the ground running too, that you are just like unashamedly like, I see what America stands for, and I am going to do everything I can to defend it. And it's such a beautiful thing to see, especially as someone who isn't from here. Are you an American citizen yet? And
Not
no,
yet.
But you're gonna be married to an American.
Yeah,
soon.
that's right. I've been
beautiful fiance.
Oh, she is. She's amazing. And so yeah, I've been here 3 years, and I'm on the green card. So I've got another 2 years before I can apply for citizenship. So unfortunately, I'm going to miss the 2024 election.
Oh.
Super bummed. But I've always said, you know, if I can influence 10 people to vote for the candidate that's going to take the country forward, then, you know, that's better than my one vote.
Amen. That is such that's needs to be the title of this this episode. It's so true though. If people don't realize how powerful just that influence is, and some people think, oh, I don't have a microphone, I don't have a platform, I can't influence anyone. You have your own circle of influence anywhere that you go. I mean, you have family, you have friends, you have coworkers, you have people around you that you can influence every day. And so when people think, oh, I don't have, a big platform, I can't influence anyone, and they don't even try to influence the people who are closest to them. I mean, that's the people God has put in your life for a reason to minister to, and not only his truth of who he is, not only to preach the good news, but to inform people and educate them on really what's going on. And so anyone listening, just know that you have so much more influence than you even realize.
100%. I remember seeing one of these memes from the Babylon Bee, father of three, desperately searching for people he can influence.
Oh my God.
It's like there's people in your world, especially if you're a parent, like that's your job, to influence your kids in the right direction.
Yeah.
And, in America, you get to vote. I don't quite understand the not wanting to vote, because in other countries, they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
there is no option to vote. You're living under a socialist or a communist regime, and whoever's in charge, they're in charge indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I kind of think they should bring in what we have in Australia. We have compulsory voting. So if you don't vote, you actually get fined.
Wow.
So
I don't know if I like that, though, because then you got people who don't care and don't know anything, and then they go in and they just vote for whatever name sounds good.
That is the downside. We have these things called donkey votes.
Yeah.
Where people will go in and they will just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in whatever order, or even in like ascending order. They really don't want to vote. They don't care about it. They just turn up and do their duty. And so that obviously has an effect on the numbers, but I think I think we do need people to vote.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the ones who complain the loudest about what's happening in the country are the ones who don't vote.
I know, it's insane to me.
It makes no sense.
There are so many people who, we just had a special election in San Diego, and 23% of people eligible to vote voted. And in California, we have everyone gets a ballot now mailed to their house. And they don't have to pay to ship it, or they don't have to, the polls are open for over a month that they can turn them in. It's insane to me that they have so much opportunity. They don't even have to get in their car and go. It comes to their house, and still less than a quarter of people are actually voting. And that should be actually inspiring to people who think that their vote, that why vote, it doesn't matter. Only less than a quarter of people are actually voting, so your vote really matters. It
really does.
It matters so much more when that little of small percentage of people are actually voting.
Yeah.
You get all the people who think, I live in California, or I live in a blue area, my vote doesn't matter because I'm a Republican, so I shouldn't vote anyways. Wrong. If every single Republican voted in every election, things would shift in California.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just not enough people getting involved, and obviously too many people are thinking like that. Oh, it's just little old me, my one vote's not going to make any difference. But you multiply that on a massive scale, and that's why we get the results that we do. Mm-hmm. Especially in the church. There's a large percentage, I forget the number right now, of Christians that don't vote.
I know.
And, that they say, separation of church and state, we shouldn't get involved, just focus on the gospel. Well, if you don't defend the First Amendment, you're not going to be able to preach the gospel.
So true.
So we've got to get involved. We've got to get active. We've got to be paying attention. There's a quote I love by Plato, which says, the price of apathy towards public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. And sadly, there's too many people who are apathetic in this day and age. They take freedom for granted. They take the system of government we have for granted. But there's going to come a time when you're not going to be able to take it for granted. And unless we recognize that it's being attacked, we're going to lose our freedoms before we have a chance to do anything about it. And at that point, you're playing catch up.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, before we go, aside from voting, which we encourage every single person listening to do, not only vote, but I encourage everyone to at least get 3 people to vote. If you can, if every Christian got 3 other Christians to vote that don't normally vote, imagine the impact.
Would make a huge impact.
I know. So aside from voting, what would you recommend to people listening who aren't politically involved but feel like they need to, they're starting to wake up, they're starting to see that, if not them, who, where to start on getting involved?
I mean, if you're in our church, I would say come see us, join up, Turning Point Faith, be a part of our group. You get to be a part of a growing community of like-minded people. Mm-hmm. And really that's the start of the journey, just being in the room where you can have these discussions and you're around people who are hungry to learn more. Mm-hmm. And once you learn more, your eyes are really opened and you realize how much work there is to do, but it also gives you a lot of hope.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be the starting point, I would say. And then, I mean, obviously, further on down the road, voting. But when it comes time to vote, look at the candidates, what they stand for. Does it align with biblical principles?
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't need someone telling you, vote this person, vote that person. But it doesn't take that long to sit down. And there's so many charts out there and resources that line up the candidates and what they stand for. And a lot of Christian organizations, I think Biblical Voter is one of them, that you can get on board with. But it's seeking it out, even just on social media, following the accounts where people talk about it.
Yeah. And
I know people get tired, and it's kind of, there's a lot of negativity around what's happening. But in the Bible it says, do not grow weary of doing good, of fighting the good fight. And you don't have to be on the front lines, but support the people who are.
Yeah, so good. Be their armor bearers, because they can't do it alone. Yeah,
exactly. We need people, and I think the church is slowly recognizing that, realizing that. And if people of faith grow and get on board with that, it could change the trajectory of this country in just one election.
I agree with you 100%. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for being on with me. This was such a great conversation, and I just can't wait to see what God does through you and Turning Point Faith, and just in this next season, what that looks like for you.
Thank you so much, Morgan. It's been a privilege.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to share it, and make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss an episode. Now go out in the world and make disciples. We'll catch you in the next one.